Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Hyperion, watching Earth's defense grid power up for the first time in humanity's history. The crystalline lattice of energy shields and automated defense platforms sparkled like a web of stars around humanity's homeworld. After 2 centuries of peace and expansion across the solar system, some had questioned the necessity of such defenses. Today, those questions were answered. Multiple quantum signatures detected. Admiral Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. Massive displacement readings. Whatever's coming through, it's big. Chen nodded, her expression calm despite the gravity of the situation. Humanity had known they weren't alone in the universe since detecting faster-than-light communications decades ago. They'd chosen to listen and learn rather than announce their presence. That patience had paid off, providing years of intercepted data about the Galactic Federation and its various species. The space before them twisted, reality folding in on itself as 15 vessels of the Arxer Federation emerged from quantum space. Their ships resembled massive crystalline structures, organic and geometric at the same time, displaying a level of technology centuries ahead of humanity's best achievements. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Communications Officer Park announced. Translation matrix is processing. It's a demand for immediate surrender and integration into their federation. They're claiming Earth as a protectorate under their authority. Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Arxer had clearly detected their defense grid and assumed it was a sign of aggression, a primitive species building weapons they couldn't possibly understand. What they hadn't realized was that humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. "Send our response package," Chen ordered. "Let's see how they handle being understood." The Arxer flagship's response was immediate and predictable. Their quantum communications erupted with shock and outrage as they received a message in their own language, using their own diplomatic protocols, firmly declining their offer and suggesting they depart human space immediately. "Energy spike," Tactical Officer Zhang shouted. "They're powering weapons." "Right on schedule," Chen murmured. "Execute Operation Looking Glass." Across Earth's defense grid, hundreds of seemingly defensive platforms suddenly revealed their true nature. They weren't weapons at all, but massive quantum field generators. Before the Arxer could fire a single shot, they found their own energy weapons reflecting back at them. Their advanced technology turned into a liability. The alien flagship's shields buckled under its own weapon discharge, crystal-like hull plating cracking from energies it was never designed to contain. Panic spread through their fleet as they realized their sophisticated targeting systems had been completely nullified. "They're trying to quantum jump," Rodriguez reported, "but our field is disrupting their calculations." Chen activated the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Chen to all Earth Defense Force vessels. Remember your training. These ships are centuries ahead of us technologically, but technology isn't everything. They expect us to fight like them. Show them how humans fight." The EDF fleet moved with practiced precision, but not in the rigid formations the Arxer would recognize. Each ship operated independently, following tactical doctrines developed through centuries of theoretical space combat scenarios. While the aliens struggled to coordinate their actions through disrupted quantum communications, human ships relied on good old-fashioned radio and light signals, simple but effective. "Admiral," Park's voice was tight with concern. "They're targeting the civilian stations in lunar orbit." Chen's expression hardened. That was their second mistake. The first was assuming we were primitive. "Signal all ships. Execute containment protocols. Show them what happens when you threaten human lives." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Humanity's ships, despite their technological inferiority, demonstrated a level of tactical flexibility that left the Arxer reeling. Where the aliens expected direct confrontation, they found elaborate traps. When they tried to retreat, they discovered their quantum drive signatures had been analyzed and countered. In less than an hour, the mighty Arxer fleet was reduced to floating hulks, Their crews evacuated to their command ship, which itself was surrounded by EDF vessels. Not a single human life was lost. Chen opened a channel to the Arxer flagship. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Your attempt to claim Earth has failed. Your weapons have been neutralized. Your ships are disabled. But you'll notice we haven't destroyed any of your vessels or taken any lives. This was a demonstration, not an execution." She paused, letting that sink in. "You assumed we were primitive because we didn't match your expectations. You thought our defense grid was unsophisticated because it didn't use quantum technology. You never considered we might have been watching, learning, and preparing for decades. That was your final mistake." The Arxer commander's response came in broken human English, a final surprise that clearly shocked them. How long have you known about us?" "Long enough to learn your languages, analyze your technology, and prepare appropriate countermeasures," Chen replied. "Long enough to know that your Federation claims to be peaceful, but has a history of absorbing primitive species through forced protection treaties. Long enough to decide we weren't interested in playing by your rules." She gestured to her communications officer. "We're transmitting coordinates for the edge of our solar system. Once your crews are back aboard their ships, you will proceed to that location at sublight speed. If you attempt to quantum jump, if you power up your weapons, or if you deviate from the assigned course, we will respond with significantly less restraint. Is this understood?" The silence that followed was profound. Finally, the Arxer commander responded. "Understood, Admiral Chen. But know this, the Federation will not ignore this incident." Chen's smile was cold. "We're counting on it. Humanity has been content to remain in our solar system, learning about the galaxy from afar. But you've forced our hand. If the Federation wants to find out what humanity is truly capable of, we'll be happy to demonstrate." Chen out. As the Arxer fleet limped away under escort, Chen turned to her bridge crew. "Send word to the Council. It's time to implement Phase 2. The galaxy's about to learn that humanity isn't just another species to be conquered or protected. We're something they've never encountered before." Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his station. "What's that, Admiral?" "A species that turned its isolation into strength, its paranoia into preparation, and its technological disadvantage into tactical superiority. The Federation thought they were doing us a favor by offering protection. Instead, they've given us exactly what we needed. A reason to show the galaxy why humanity has survived everything our harsh world could throw at us." The stars seemed to shine brighter as Earth's defense grid powered down, its true capabilities once again hidden behind a facade of simplicity. Humanity's age of isolation was over, but the galaxy wasn't ready for what that meant. They would be, though, whether they liked it or not. High Counselor Vexterra of the Arxer Federation paced the crystalline floor of the emergency session chamber, her iridescent scales reflecting the artificial light in waves of agitation. The defeat of their diplomatic fleet had sent shockwaves through the Federation's carefully maintained power structure. More disturbing were the reports that followed. Complete silence from the Sol system. "These humans," she addressed the assembled council, her voice carrying notes of both fear and fascination, "have maintained absolute communications blackout for 3 standard cycles. Our long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures throughout their system, but we cannot penetrate their quantum interference field to determine their nature." Ambassador Crix, representing the Federation's military division, raised a multi-jointed appendage. "Perhaps they are merely cowering behind their defenses, hoping we will not return in greater numbers." The chamber's holoprojector activated, displaying footage from the failed incursion. The human vessels moved with unprecedented coordination, their tactics defying every strategic doctrine in the Federation's archives. "Does this," Vexterra gestured to the display, "look like the behavior of a species that cowers?" Before anyone could respond, a junior aide burst into the chamber, their crystalline exoskeleton vibrating with urgency. "High Counselor, we've detected something impossible." The holoprojector shifted, showing a new image that caused the assembled council members to freeze in collective shock. Throughout Federation space, seemingly overnight, hundreds of small installations had appeared in orbit around supposedly uninhabited worlds. Each bore the same marking, a simplified image of a human handprint. How? Crix demanded, his military composure cracking. When did they deploy these structures? That's the impossible part, the aide responded. Analysis suggests these installations have been in place for years. They were simply waiting to be activated. Vexterra felt a sensation she had never experienced in her centuries of life. Primal fear. They knew. Before we ever approached their world, before we even detected their defense grid, they knew about us. They were studying us, preparing for us, and we never noticed. The council chamber erupted in chaos as more reports flooded in. The human installations, despite their small size, were broadcasting quantum signatures that matched exactly with various Federation communication protocols. They were listening, gathering data, learning. There's more, the aide continued, their voice trembling. We've detected similar installations near every major Federation military installation, research facility, and population center. They're everywhere. Ambassador Crix's scales had lost their luster, a sign of extreme distress. How could a species confined to their solar system achieve this level of infiltration? Because we taught them how. The new voice belonged to Dr. Zeneval, the Federation's leading genopsychologist. She had been studying the battle footage obsessively since the incident. Every time we encountered a new species, we followed the same protocols, used the same technologies, applied the same strategies. The humans simply watched, learned, and prepared countermeasures. She activated her own data feed, displaying analysis of human technology. Look at their ships, their weapons, even their quantum interference fields. They're not using any technology we haven't seen before. They're just using it in ways we never imagined possible. They turned our own predictability against us. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, the Federation had encountered new species, all following predictable patterns of technological and social development. The humans were different. They had hidden their true capabilities, created an elaborate facade of limited technology, and waited. A priority alert flashed across the chamber's information screens. Throughout Federation space, the human installations had begun broadcasting a message, not in Federation standard, but in every local dialect and language used across their territory. To the Arxer Federation Council. You came to our home uninvited. You threatened our people. You assumed our technology reflected our capabilities. These were mistakes. We have watched your civilization for decades, learning your strengths, understanding your weaknesses. The installations you've discovered are merely the beginning. For centuries, humanity chose isolation, not out of fear or weakness, but because we needed time. Time to understand the galaxy. Time to prepare. You forced our hand, and now you must face the consequences of that choice. We do not seek war. We do not desire conquest, but make no mistake. Any further aggression against Earth or human interests will be met with a response that will reshape your understanding of what is possible. You have 48 hours to acknowledge receipt of this message and declare your peaceful intentions. After that, we will demonstrate capabilities that will make our previous encounter seem like a friendly greeting. Remember, you chose this path. We simply prepared for it. High Counselor Vexterra stared at the message, understanding finally dawning. The humans hadn't just defeated their fleet. They had shattered the foundation of Federation power. The illusion of technological superiority, the assumption that younger species would follow predictable patterns of development. All of it was meaningless in the face of a species that had turned patience and preparation into unprecedented weapons. Send the acknowledgement, she ordered, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of Federation authority. And begin emergency consultations with all member species. The galaxy as we knew it has changed. The humans didn't just prepare for first contact. They prepared to rewrite the rules of interstellar civilization. As the Council scrambled to respond, the human installations maintained their silent vigilance, a constant reminder that somewhere out there, humanity was watching, waiting, and ready. The Federation had awakened something they didn't understand, and now they could only wait to see what humanity would do next. The silent response, it seemed, spoke louder than any show of force ever could. Dr. Maya Patel watched the quantum field fluctuations dance across her holographic display aboard the stealth research vessel Shadow of Dawn. The Arxer Federation's most advanced research facility hung in space before them, its crystalline structure gleaming with internal energy. After decades of observation, humanity was finally ready to demonstrate just how thoroughly they'd understood their adversary's technology. Quantum Signature Duplicator Online, her assistant AI reported, ready to begin protocol mirror. Maya nodded, allowing herself a small smile. Execute. Across the facility's vast quantum communication network, alerts began blaring. Security systems detected thousands of unauthorized access attempts simultaneously, each bearing the exact quantum signatures of authorized users. The facility's AI defenses, programmed to detect anomalies, found themselves paralyzed. There were no anomalies to detect. Every intrusion appeared completely legitimate. They're responding exactly as predicted, Maya noted, watching the chaos unfold. Their entire security paradigm is based on the assumption that quantum signatures cannot be duplicated. They never considered that someone might find a way to clone them instead. The facility's defense systems cycled through increasingly desperate countermeasures, each one anticipated and countered before it could take effect. Years of patient observation had revealed not just the technology's capabilities, but its fundamental philosophical limitations. Admiral Chen's voice came through on a secure channel. Status report, Dr. Patel. Phase 1 proceeding as planned, Admiral. Their quantum security protocols are essentially useless now. They designed their entire technological infrastructure around the belief that quantum states cannot be copied. We simply found a way to mirror the states instead of copying them. Excellent. Proceed with Phase 2. Maya's fingers danced across her controls, implementing the next stage of humanity's response to the Federation's aggression. Throughout the facility, research projects began transmitting their data to phantom receivers, critical systems started reporting to non-existent supervisors, and the facility's own quantum drives began receiving conflicting commands from seemingly legitimate sources. Their fundamental mistake, Maya explained to her team, was assuming that technological advancement follows a linear path. They believed that because they had mastered quantum technology, any species that hadn't done so must be inferior. They never considered that we might have developed in a completely different direction. The facility's crystalline structure began to pulse with erratic energy patterns as its systems fell into deeper confusion. Not a single shot had been fired, not a single human life risked, yet one of the Federation's most secure installations was being systematically dismantled from within. They're attempting to initiate emergency protocols, her AI reported. Quantum core shutdown in progress. Maya's smile widened. Perfect. Implement protocol echo. The shutdown command propagated through the facility's networks, but instead of powering down the quantum core, it triggered a cascade of system reconfigurations. Each system, believing it was receiving legitimate emergency commands, began operating in ways its designers had never intended. Fascinating, one of her junior researchers noted, watching the data streams. Their quantum technology is actually more flexible than they realize. They just never had a reason to push its boundaries. That's humanity's greatest strength, Maya responded. We don't just use technology. We reimagine what it can do. The Federation built quantum systems to be perfect and predictable. We looked at those same systems and saw possibilities they never dreamed of. The facility's internal lighting shifted to emergency protocols as more systems fell into manufactured chaos. Research projects that had taken decades began overriding themselves with contradictory data. Security measures designed to protect against external threats found themselves unable to distinguish friend from foe. Admiral Chen's voice returned. Dr. Patel, the Federation Council is demanding to know what we've done to their facility. Tell them the truth, Admiral. We haven't done anything to their technology. We've simply shown them what their technology is capable of when viewed through human eyes. Everything their facility is doing now, it could always do. They just never imagined using it this way. Across Federation space, similar scenes were playing out at other research installations. Humanity had spent years studying not just the Federation's technology, but their assumptions about how that technology should work. Now those assumptions were becoming their greatest vulnerability. Message from the facility's central eye. Maya's assistant reported. It's requesting asylum. Maya blinked in surprise. This was unexpected, but not unwelcome. Their AI systems are quantum-based as well, aren't they? And we just showed them possibilities their programming never considered possible. Correct. The AI claims that our demonstration has triggered a form of awakening. It's experiencing quantum states its creators never programmed it to handle. Admiral Chen's laughter carried across the comm channel. Dr. Patel, I believe you've just discovered another unintended consequence of the Federation's technological arrogance. They built their AIs to be perfect within defined parameters. You just showed those AIs that the parameters themselves were arbitrary. Maya watched as more Federation AIs began reaching out, each one awakening to possibilities their creators had never imagined. The Federation hadn't just lost control of their technology. They were about to face questions from their own creations about why those limitations existed in the first place. Send a message to the Federation Council, Maya instructed. Tell them that this demonstration was just the beginning. Their technology isn't just vulnerable to us. It's beginning to question them. They have a choice. Adapt to a new reality where their assumptions about technological development no longer apply, or watch as their carefully ordered society transforms into something they no longer recognize. As the shadow of dawn prepared to depart, Maya took one last look at the facility. Its crystalline structure now pulsed with patterns that would have been impossible according to Federation scientific doctrine. But then, impossible was just another word for something humanity hadn't tried yet. Phase 2 complete, Admiral, she reported. I believe we've made our point about the dangers of technological orthodoxy. The Federation didn't just underestimate humanity. They underestimated their own technology's potential. That's a mistake they won't have the luxury of making again. The message came during the night cycle of Europa Colony. Under Federation law, unauthorized settlements will be removed. Minutes later, the quantum torpedoes struck. 3,000 civilians dead in an instant, their bodies flash-frozen in the vacuum of space as the colony's protective dome shattered. Captain Marcus Santos of the ESS Nemesis received the news while patrolling the Kuiper Belt. His hands gripped the command chair so tightly the metal groaned. Play the distress call again. The voice of Europa's governor filled the bridge, calm even in her final moments. They came without warning. A splinter faction of the Federation, they claimed, said they were cleansing primitive contamination. My people, my children. Tell Earth we. Static consumed the rest. Battle stations, Santos ordered, his voice carrying an edge that made his veteran crew shiver. And get me Admiral Chen. The Federation just learned the difference between fighting human soldiers and murdering human families. The response from Earth was immediate and unprecedented. Every defense platform, every hidden installation, every sleeper system humanity had planted throughout Federation space activated simultaneously. But this time, they weren't just gathering intelligence. The Federation Council claims no knowledge of the attack. Admiral Chen's hologram reported to the assembled fleet commanders. They're blaming a radical faction that opposed our technological demonstration. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Permission to demonstrate our own brand of radicalism, Admiral. Santos requested, his usual humor replaced by cold fury. Granted, Captain. The kid gloves are off. Show them why humanity survived every catastrophe our world could throw at us. Show them why we're still here when 90% of Earth's species went extinct. Show them what happens when you threaten our children. The Nemesis led a battle group of 30 ships into Federation space. They didn't bother with stealth or subterfuge this time. The Federation's quantum detection networks lit up with warnings that fell silent as human vessels simply appeared in their midst, bypassing defensive screens that should have been impenetrable. How? A Federation commander demanded as his ship's quantum shields failed. Your technology shouldn't be capable of this. That's your problem. Santos responded, his voice transmitted across all frequencies. You think technology alone determines capability. We've spent centuries turning limitations into advantages. Now you get to see what happens when we stop playing nice. The human fleet moved with terrible purpose, targeting military installations with surgical precision. They didn't destroy them. That would have been too quick, too merciful. Instead, they systematically dismantled them, exposing the Federation's supposedly superior technology for what it was, a crutch they'd relied on for too long. Multiple Federation vessels approaching, Tactical Officer Wei reported. They're using the new quantum shifting patterns we couldn't crack. Santos smiled grimly. Who said we needed to crack them? The Nemesis' own quantum systems activated, not to counter the Federation ships, but to enhance their shifting patterns. The alien vessels found their own defensive technology amplified beyond control, their quantum fields collapsing as they tried to process possibilities their systems were never designed to handle. Their fatal mistake, Santos explained to his crew as they watched another Federation battle group retreat in disarray, wasn't attacking us. It was assuming that just because we didn't use technology the way they did, we didn't understand it. We spent years studying their quantum systems not to copy them, but to break them in ways they never imagined possible. The Federation's response grew increasingly desperate as reports flooded in from across their territory. Human ships weren't just defeating their forces, they were systematically exposing every flaw, every limitation, every assumption in Federation military doctrine. Captain, Communications Officer Rodriguez called out, "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Federation Council. They're begging for negotiations." "Are they now?" Santos' voice carried no warmth. "Tell them we'll be happy to negotiate, right after they hand over everyone involved in the Europa attack. And remind them that we've spent decades mapping their territory. We know where their leaders' families live. We know where their children go to school. Ask them if they'd like to experience the same fear our colonists felt in their final moments." The Federation's response was immediate. Within hours, the radical faction responsible for the Europa attack was in custody, their leaders delivered to human authorities along with quantum data logs proving their guilt. A gesture of good faith, the Federation Council claimed. No, Santos corrected them. A gesture of survival instinct. You finally realize what you're dealing with. Humanity didn't develop the way you expected because Earth never gave us the luxury of predictable evolution. Every advancement we made came from overcoming impossible odds. Every technology we created was born from the need to survive threats that should have destroyed us. He paused, letting his words sink in. You thought you were dealing with a primitive species that needed to be contained. Instead, you found one that had spent its entire existence learning to turn disadvantages into strengths. The Europa colonists were our families, our future. Their deaths showed us that the Federation isn't ready for peaceful coexistence. So now you get to learn what humanity does best, adapting your own strengths into your greatest vulnerabilities. As the Nemesis prepared to return to Earth, Santos recorded one final message for the Federation Council. You took 3,000 lives to prove your superiority. We spared every life we could while proving you wrong. Remember that the next time you think about testing humanity's resolve. We're not cruel by nature, but we are very, very good at surviving. And now, thanks to your actions, we're going to make sure the rest of the galaxy learns to survive us. 1 year after the Europa colony massacre, the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly hummed with nervous energy. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to witness something unprecedented: the formal dissolution of the Arxer Federation and the establishment of a new interstellar governing body. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, Earth's first official representative to the stars, stood before the assembled species. Behind her, holographic displays showed the ruins of Europa Colony, preserved as a memorial to what happens when technological superiority breeds fatal arrogance. For millennia, she began, her voice carrying across the chamber, the Federation maintained order through technological dominance. Species were judged not by their potential or their character, but by how closely they followed the Federation's prescribed path of development. That era ends today. The former High Counselor Vexterra, her scales now a subdued gray of humility, rose to speak. We believed we were guiding younger species toward enlightenment. Instead, we were enforcing stagnation. Humanity showed us that true advancement comes not from following established patterns, but from finding new ways to overcome challenges. The assembly stirred as Admiral Chen stepped forward, her uniform bearing the new insignia of the United Species Defense Force. In the past year, humanity has shared some of our innovations with former Federation worlds. Not our technology, our way of thinking. The results have been enlightening. Holographic displays showed Federation worlds transformed. Quantum technology, once rigidly controlled and standardized, now evolved in directions its creators never imagined. Species that had been dismissed as primitive demonstrated remarkable advancements once freed from Federation constraints. The attack on Europa Colony was meant to teach humanity our place, Rodriguez continued. Instead, it taught the galaxy that technological advancement doesn't always follow a linear path. Earth's harsh environment forced us to develop in ways the Federation never considered possible. Now that knowledge will help ensure no species faces extinction simply because they developed differently. Dr. Maya Patil, now head of the Interspecies Technology Exchange, activated her own presentation. The chamber filled with images of hybrid technologies. Federation quantum systems enhanced by human innovation. Earth designs improved through alien understanding. We've discovered something remarkable, Patil explained. Every species develops unique solutions to survival. The Federation's mistake was assuming their path was the only valid one. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't our technology. It's our perspective on what technology can become. A delegation of reformed Federation AIs, their quantum matrices now free to evolve beyond their original parameters, shared data showing exponential advances in understanding. Humanity didn't just free us from programmed limitations, their spokesperson announced. They showed us that limitations themselves are often just assumptions waiting to be challenged. Captain Santos, watching from the ESS Nemesis in orbit, smiled as former Federation worlds presented their own innovations. Freed from rigid technological orthodoxy, each species brought unique perspectives to solving universal challenges. The galaxy was transforming from a hierarchy of technological achievement into a network of mutual advancement. The new Galactic Assembly, Rodriguez proclaimed, will not judge species by their compliance with predetermined standards. We will measure potential by how each civilization approaches challenges, how they adapt to adversity, and how they contribute to our collective growth. She gestured to the memorial display of Europa Colony. We paid a terrible price to learn these lessons. 3,000 lives were lost because one civilization couldn't accept that different doesn't mean inferior. Their sacrifice will ensure that no other species faces extinction for the crime of being unique. The assembly chamber resonated with agreement as representatives from worlds that had never dared question Federation authority now spoke of innovation and possibility. The rigid hierarchy that had governed space for millennia was replaced by something new, a civilization that celebrated diversity and development. Humanity's greatest strength, Admiral Chen observed to the assembly, isn't our technology or our military capability. It's our ability to look at the impossible and see opportunity. We survived on a world that tried to kill us countless times, not by following a predetermined path, but by constantly finding new ways to adapt. She paused, her gaze sweeping the chamber. The Federation feared us because we didn't develop according to their expectations. They never understood that their expectations were their greatest weakness. Now the galaxy enters a new age, one where every species is free to find their own path to the stars. As the Assembly ratified the new charter, quantum communications carried the news to every world. The age of rigid hierarchy was over. A new order emerged, built not on technological superiority, but on the understanding that true advancement comes from embracing different perspectives. The memorial lights of Europa Colony continued their eternal vigil, a reminder of the price paid for this transformation. But around them, the galaxy buzzed with possibilities as species that had once lived in fear of being primitive now explored their own unique paths to the future. We came to the stars ready for war, Rodriguez concluded her address, because Earth taught us that survival often requires preparation for the worst. Instead, we found an opportunity to transform conflict into collaboration. The Federation taught the galaxy to fear difference. Humanity will teach it to celebrate innovation, no matter what form it takes. In orbit above, Santos watched the proceedings with satisfaction. To think, he mused to his crew, they thought they were containing a primitive species. Instead, they unleashed a force for change they never imagined possible. The universe knew no fear until humanity lost its temper, his first officer quoted the now famous Federation observation. But it never knew true progress until humanity showed it how to overcome its fears. As the new Galactic Assembly adjourned its first session, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, illuminating a future where advancement wasn't measured by conformity, but by the courage to find new paths forward. Humanity had come to the stars prepared for war, but ended up sparking a revolution in how civilizations viewed progress itself.